With the opening of the Project Pride, we invite you to travel together with us through cities and countries of the world to meet Kazakhstan people there, learn more about their life. We will go on a visit, we will plunge into their work, we will walk to their favorite corners of the cities they live in. But the main thing is that we set out on a journey to be inspired by their success. After all, the heroes of our program are bright and interesting people, and every story, every acquaintance is a swirl of impressions.
In today's program, Marat Bissengaliyev, the country life of a nomad. Pride continues to travel around the world to share with you the success stories of our people, those who give a reason to be proud and who set an example. Today, we're going to the south of France to meet a man whose name is known to everyone in his homeland. Outside Kazakhstan, he is also widely known because he had worked in dozens of different countries. We're going south, towards the Spanish border, and we're going to meet Maestro Marat Bissengaliyev. Oh yes, we're going the Kazakh way, rented the whole train. We're getting closer. Hello, it's good to see you. Bissengaliyev Marat Sametovich, the world-famous violin virtuoso. The Times called him brilliant violin soloist. He was born on March 15, 1962 in Almaty. In 1969, he entered the violin class of the Republican Secondary Special Music School named after Bayseitova and graduated in 1979. In a period from 1979 to 1981, he started in the Almaty State Conservatory named after Kurmangazi in the class of Nina Petrusheva. From 1981 to 1984, in the Moscow State Conservatory named after Tchaikovsky in the class of Boris Belinky. Starting in 1986 until 1988, he did his postgraduate started at the Moscow Conservatory. He was in the class of Valery Klimov. The bright finish of Marat Bissengaliev's studies at the Moscow Conservatory was his solo concert on the stage of the Great Hall of the Conservatory with the State Orchestra of the Soviet Union, where Marat brilliantly performed Beethoven's Violin Concerto. In 1989, Bissengaliyev created his first orchestra called Altin Alma. Honored worker of Kazakhstan, professor of the Birmingham Conservatory, one of the directors of the Alliance of the Asia-Pacific Region Orchestras, AAPRO, he is also creator and leader of the first and only symphony orchestra in India, as well as the director of the Almaty Symphony Orchestra. He works in Great Britain, India and Kazakhstan. Our meeting took place in the south of France, where the maestro lives with his wife and 2 children. However, the spouses protect their privacy, so we will leave the name of the place behind the scenes. For a typical French breakfast, the host has brought fresh croissants. And the cat, Grappelli, named after a famous musician, welcomed us home. Oh, Grappelli, he's waiting for us. Hello. He was named after my favorite violinist, Stefano Grappelli. The province is peaceful and calm. Some people would even consider life in such mansion boring, but it is perhaps what you need to relax from constant traveling and active work in different countries. Right? Amazing atmosphere. It is a great place. And a football field for my son. I play with him all the time here. And when the weather is fine, we can see the Pyrenees, almost like in Almaty. Here is a black mountain. The sea is just right after the pass. And in that direction, there are mountains. Well, like Kapchagai, probably. The mountains are far away. They're beautiful with snow, snowy peaks. Now, unfortunately, we can't see them. Those who hardly can find a couple of days off in the schedule will definitely enjoy the village quietness and the lack of hectic atmosphere. Even social network profiles of a musician show that Bissengaliyev changed his location all the time. Well, if you want something active, you can get in the car and go somewhere. Of course, yes. And what is the nearest place? Where do you go when you want to feel the pulse of life? Toulouse? Toulouse, yes. 1.5 hours by car. Well, with the speed here, I think it can be faster. Well, yeah, maybe for a few minutes, I think. Even to the nearest store, we have to drive for some time. So, there are pros and cons. For me, the lack of shops, tourists, and so on is a huge advantage. It is difficult for me to live for more than a week in a big city. A week's still okay, but after more than a week, I'm already exhausted. But constantly being on the road, do you lead this nomadic life? Was it hard to get used to it? It was quite okay. I think that for us Kazakhs, being nomads is part of the genetic code. Even here, at home, I cannot stay too long. A couple of weeks of this boredom is enough for me, and then I must fly somewhere again. Well, we will use this gap in the busy schedule to talk about life, work, music, and more. Marat Bissengaliyev undoubtedly belongs to the number of major musicians. But what is surprising is that he is young at heart. He loves experiments and innovative moves and admits that he has always stayed young mentally. I have a theory that every person is born and lives the whole life with the same age. Someone is a teenager all his life, but some people were born old. And how old are you inside? Well, I don't know. It seems to me that I still study at the Moscow Conservatory. Maybe that's why he loves to work with young people and does it very often. The reasons may be different. The major musicians have more ambitions and own attitudes. Young people are more flexible, but they also so energetic, right? I prefer to work with students with young people. If you notice, my orchestra in Mumbai and Almaty consists almost entirely of young people. Because yes, you are right, I very often disagreed. Because my approach to work with music is quite fresh, not ordinary. It often goes against some postulates, dogmas. Musicians who learned from great professors and great conservatories disagree with me. I very often have misunderstandings not only with musicians but also with conductors. I remember playing with one, I will not tell the name, the great Russian conductor, with the Irish orchestra in Dublin. I played Tchaikovsky with him. He simply accused me of betraying the tradition of the Moscow Conservatory. Being part of the common notion is clearly not for Marat. Working with young orchestras and musicians not only allows him to implement his ideas without confrontation, but also gives him new fresh energy. Well, in general, that's true, because I admit that when working with young people, I feel quite like them. And when I communicate with my classmates and age mates, I'm horrified. I return to reality. Well, maybe there is some sort of vampire thing. Who knows? Despite the fact that Maestro enjoys the work with youngsters and he initiated a music school for young talents in Mumbai, he was feeling completely uncomfortable being a professor. That experience only disappointed him. For 3 years, I was a professor at the Hungarian Conservatory. Honestly, I just could not make it. It required special qualities? I think yes. It requires a talent. In my case, I just could not withstand some kind of mediocrity. In life, it happens that you only have a few such students whom you are always happy to see. They are talented. You can give them as much time as you want. But most of the students do not have talent, and some are mediocre, which have no future. And still, you need to give time to them. And you cannot tell them directly to not waste time. No, yes, of course, it is a pain in the neck. And in general, you start to wonder why you need that. And in the end, I just realized that it is not for me, although this gives some sort of guaranteed material basis and calmness in life. But I absolutely did not need this. So I decided that the professorship is not for me. Well, to understand what is better to refuse in the right time is also the result of some determination and courage. Bissengaliyev has performed on a huge number of scenes and venues from different countries and is able to quickly enter the rehearsal rhythm, adapt to the orchestra. That is art as well. Talking about your projects, including the one in Almaty and a project in Mumbai, in how many countries have you already performed? Probably about 50? No, much more. I counted as of today it is more than 70. How difficult is it to get into someone else's mentality? How difficult is it to work with artists? Or is it easy? Maybe the musicians speak a particular language, telepathically communicate, and how different are the audiences? Where is it harder to perform? Well, as for the orchestra, of course, it's very difficult. Each of them has some special features. And one more element is the conductor. Here, of course, there are some incidents, some of them are quite unpleasant. And that's why I admit that I feel much more comfortable and better when I play with my orchestra, with Indian and with Almaty, because I know what I want and I know that I will achieve what I want. In the environment where cooperation must be built within the few hours, asperities are inevitable. Mature musicians do not want to trust a stranger. Conductors refuse to agree with an unfamiliar soloist. Playing with conductors, of course, I'm trying to play with conductors whom I know, because I know that they are conductors with big names. They are conductors with big names that do not hear and do not listen. They are conductors with big names that hear but do not follow you. Of course, at some point there is a struggle on the stage. That is, firstly, the soloists struggle with the orchestra. Of course, on the stage the orchestra should follow the soloist. But very often it happens that some musicians behave a little complicated. Well, the spectator, he does not notice it. And for us, it's like magic. It's always been interesting for me. For example, the conductor came yesterday, plays with our musicians, or vice versa, and it is in a matter of days, in such a short time. Well, you know, in England, it's not a day or two, it's on the day of the concert. And the time for rehearsal is usually less than the duration of the concert. That is, say, Tchaikovsky's concert lasts 35 minutes. You are given only half an hour for rehearsal. Tutti codes are removed, and we go through everything very quickly. And that's all. Then there is no way to change anything. Therefore, many conductors, they do not like to play with such orchestras as English and American, because there is some kind of a template. There are some traditions, yes, which you must follow. And what about the miracle of creativity in harsh conditions? Of course. Therefore, the miracle disappears. That's why many orchestras sound like twin brothers. Patterns. Yes, that's right. I've been listening to the orchestras on iTunes, and as for the modern orchestra, it's very difficult for me to say which orchestra is playing, because they're so similar to each other. So if I take an orchestra that was recorded 70 years ago, then instantly I can hear everything. Of course, the orchestras were less perfect in their performance, but the style was so bright that it was always possible to recognize them. The same can be said about soloists. As for the performance, today it is very difficult for me sometimes to guess not only who plays it, but even is it played by a woman or a man, because it's usually very easy to say, and today it is perfect. What the viewer sees as a miracle and what is perceived by hearing, sight and heart for musicians is many hours and then years of hard work, and it's not just about musical rehearsals. It is difficult, for example, not to notice how the classical artists changed even in appearance in comparison with their colleagues, let's say 15-20 years ago. Back then, we always knew that opera singers are women in the size of a piano. Now you look at any orchestra, they're young, beautiful, slender people. Is this a trend? Is this a worldwide trend? Well, I think it's a must, most likely a necessity. This is competition. Because we compete not only inside the classical shop business, we compete with pop music and with jazz and with other genres. In Kazakhstan, folk music is very popular now. Naturally, we must compete. We can compete on the same sides with the same audience that goes to other genres. Therefore, simply mastery of the instrument is no longer enough. As well as you are right, when it was believed that the singer cannot sing without being a particular size. In fact, this is a myth. You can say some excuse for many singers. Now, if you look at Maria Mudryak, she is a model on the stage. You can play Carmen. You can play any role, Juliet, anyone. The real one and be in this role. Because really, when you listen to Jesse Norman, it's very difficult to imagine. Yes, of course, you enjoy the sound, but of course the sizes do not give this possibility to abstract away. To get into the plot, completely to be blown away with it. Yes, well, I'm talking about this, of course. Myself, I need to get in shape. Well, you have a very bright image on the stage. In addition to touring and developing new shows in different countries, there is something that can be called a permanent job. For Marat Bissengaliyev, it is two orchestras, which without him would not exist. Those are the Symphony Orchestra of Mumbai and the Symphony Orchestra of Almaty. In fact, really, most of My life is out of the house. Total, in a year I'm here for 2-3 months. Not more than that. That is, I see my family for 2-3 months. Most of the time goes to work in Mumbai, around 3-4 months. And the rest of the time is traveling. And of course Almaty. The Mumbai Symphony Orchestra was created by Kazakh musician in 2006. And what is surprising to this day, it remains the only one in the country. Well, the whole situation has changed, because the economy of India, everyone knows, is on the rise. Maybe even at the highest level, higher than in China. Of course, this also affects the culture. Now there is a huge rise. And I see it from listeners who come to concerts, more and more, new faces and young people who come to the concerts. What surprises me is that 13 years passed, and so far this is the only orchestra. Because I was absolutely sure, when I started in 2005, I was quite sure that in 10 years there will be a few orchestras in India, that the number will rise as in China. There are already more than 200 orchestras in China. Can you imagine? The maestro has lots of ideas and new projects. He finds great co-authors because Bissengaliyev is known not only as a musician and conductor, but a progressive showman. And in general, who generates these ideas? Well, in general, flying was my idea. My idea and my dream. Unfortunately, with my current physical abilities, I cannot do this, because no cable can lift me. There are cables that are so thin that they can take the load, not more than 55 kilograms. That's why it turns out that in my orchestra in general have petite musicians. Well, thin and light, up to 55 kilograms. The energy of sound show presented in Astana has suddenly made a splash, and now it will continue to amaze the world. I think this show will be continued in Almaty and other cities and in Moscow. We plan this year in Moscow. We also plan one more show, very interesting show. It is more chamber. It is called Mr. Rado. There are also some interesting innovations. The producer is Vasily Barhatov, who made the sound of energy. I think he's a man with unlimited imagination, who thinks beyond the impossible. He's crazy as me, as all our team. Because if we think about it, such a show cannot be done at all. How could the idea of the musicians flying and playing live appear? By the way, how it feels to perform in a hometown, and is there a difference between the stages and audiences in different cities? Well, we talked about orchestras, now about the public. Different cities and countries' audiences meet in different ways. Where is it easier to play? Where is it harder? Well, it's always easier to play when no one knows you. Surprisingly, that is less responsibility, less pressure. Bias, yes. For me, it is most difficult to play in Almaty. In a place where you play often, many listeners wait for something. And this something should be better than the last time. You have to constantly prove this and surprise the public. It is great to discover new things in Interlocutor as well. The master offered us to make a short walk to the mountains, to a place with unrealistically beautiful cliffs. Here, according to Marat, he feels a special energy and recharges. The nature is fantastic. Yes. And here the nature is almost untouched. People do not live there. Not a tourist site. There are practically no tourists there, for when people see me, they certainly look at me like as I'm an alien. Alien? Yes, alien. The unusual one. After we walked around Sedobra, got lost once and a couple of times asked the road, we found the rocks we wanted. It turns out that a person, regardless the area he lives and what status he has, always wants to leave his mark. Perpetuate, yes, it's for ages, right? This was carved. Someone has put a lot of effort, yes, but in 200 years it will be already heritage. I want to believe. Well, it's so hard to believe how he can balance things. It's hard to say which part is bigger, but it holds somehow. And then something happened that I'll probably never forget, especially for pride. He began an unprecedented experiment to stage an improvised performance in nature. Although our spontaneous concert lasted only for a while, and there was no audience at all before, the spectators began to gather almost instantly. Well, I hope they will have the opportunity to listen to the virtuoso player on a stage with the perfect acoustics. In this case, they will never forget these amazing impressions after the concert. Marat Bissengaliyev is a man who can impress you in many ways. You can never predict what to expect from him. He's a man of many talents. For example, in addition to the fact that Marat is on vacation in the village, he's also engaged in farming here. Private life in a country house involves many such things that people living in the city do not remember and sometimes do not know. Therefore, when you come to the provinces, you can expect anything. Now let's listen to our maestro. Now, let us choose music. Vivaldi. Vivaldi. For the tractor. Of course, when Maestro entrusted this work to me, I was so delighted. Oh my goodness, to mow the lawn to the music of Vivaldi. This has not happened to me before. Does it look fine? Not bad for the first time. You left some blocks of grass unmown, here and there. This means you didn't do your work properly. You were inattentive. If only I have this chance to come here at least once a year to mow the lawn, I think I would be the happiest person. It is my pleasure. And what about headphones? This is gorgeous. Cut the lawn to Vivaldi. It's amazing to do this work with such a view. It was incredible, an amazing experience, and definitely one of those memories I will now share with my children, grandchildren, and other people. Thank you very much. This day in the south of France definitely can be an outstanding day. We did many things. I expected that this day would be no ordinary one. By the way, do you remember where did the series of stories about our trip in Europe start? It started with a concert on December the 16th, 2016 in Paris, organized by leader of the Association of Kazakh People in France, Berlin Irishev, in honor of the anniversary of independence of Kazakhstan. Maestro Marat Bissengaliyev also performed at the concert. Today we leave our hospitable host in his lovely French farmhouse with children. He's busy with jam preparation and rehearsals in the open air. We're waiting for him with new and old programs in Kazakhstan. Well, I'm leaving now. Let me express my gratitude. I wish the muse would never leave you. May the inspiration has always been with you. I wish the audience would always welcome you with warmth no matter which country you visit. Thank you for visiting. It was pleasant to talk with you. I will always remember this day. I hope to see you soon. Of course, here in France and in Almaty. I will be very pleased to see you again.